OTF Jam is in critical condition after being attacked in prison for snitching on Lil Durk. The man who allegedly became one of the most important cooperating witnesses in the federal murder-for-hire case against one of Chicago's biggest rappers has been stabbed behind bars, and people are immediately connecting it to his cooperation with the government. This is not just a story about a prison attack. What led to this unfortunate incident goes much deeper. A man who came home after more than a decade behind bars, welcomed back with money and loyalty, somehow ended up becoming the government's weapon against the very people he once called family. What got him there was a combination of a federal gun arrest, unanswered questions about murders, an alleged personal tragedy, and a feeling of abandonment that ultimately changed everything. Stay with us, because the story of how Casey Hester went from OTF's corner to the government's witness stand is one of the most layered stories to come out of the Chicago rap world in years. But real quick, if you're serious about winning in the rap game, I put everything I know into one ebook. I'm talking how to actually grow an audience from zero, how to get labels reaching out to you with deals, and even how to get paid in this industry without ever touching a mic. And nah, it's not too late. People love to say the wave passed. It didn't. New artists and new hustlers are blowing up every single day, and the ones eating are the ones who started now instead of waiting. It's only $14.99. That's a few cups of coffee for a blueprint that can change how you move in this game forever. Links in the description bio. Go grab it. Then let's get back to the video. Yo, what's good, fam? Today we're breaking down the full story of OTF Jam, how a 12-year prison sentence, a welcome home gift, and a federal case allegedly turned a loyal street soldier into the prosecution's star witness against Lil Durk. Let's get into it. Picture a man walking out of prison after more than a decade. Over 12 years behind bars. The world has changed entirely. The music, the streets, the people he knew before he went in, all of it looks different. But the one thing that reportedly made that transition feel manageable was that the circle he came from had not forgotten him. That man is Casey Hester, known publicly as OTF Jam. He was convicted of attempted murder in 2010 and served approximately 12 years before being released in February of 2022. Coming home after that kind of time is never simple. The adjustment is real, and the pressure to figure out where you fit is immediate. But according to the narrative that has since built up around his return, Jam did not come home to silence. According to widely circulated accounts, Lil Durk welcomed Jam home with approximately $50,000 in cash and new cars. That number has been discussed by commentators, referenced by community figures, and cited in conversations about just how significant Jam was considered within the OTF orbit. One perspective that circulated put it plainly: nobody else got welcomed home like that. People who knew the dynamics of the circle noted that this kind of reception was not standard. $50,000 and cars for someone coming home is a statement. That kind of reception says something about how Jam was viewed and what he was expected to bring back to the table. On the surface, it looked like loyalty in action. A man who did his time, kept his mouth shut, and came home to people who honored that. But the darker reading of that same moment, the one that federal prosecutors would later attach significance to, is that the money was not simply a gift. The government's framing alleges that Jam's return was tied to a much more serious expectation, that he would be available as a trusted and experienced member of OTF's alleged criminal operation. Now, to understand all of this, you have to understand what OTF is and what it is not. Only the Family is the Chicago-based rap collective and record label founded by Lil Durk, whose legal name is Durk Devontae Banks. It has produced real music, real chart success, and a genuine fan base built over years of consistent output. Durk won a Grammy in February 2024 and was riding the highest point of his career with his J. Cole collaboration All My Life sitting at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. But federal prosecutors alleged something else was running alongside the music. They alleged that OTF operated as a criminal enterprise, using its money and connections to orchestrate violence against rivals, with Durk allegedly serving as the leader directing others to carry out violent acts on his behalf. Not every artist or associate connected to OTF is part of those allegations, but the prosecution's case is built around a specific group of people and a specific set of alleged actions. And Jam, according to prosecutors, was one of the people inside that circle, someone with enough proximity to the alleged criminal activity to serve as a critical witness in explaining what was actually happening behind the scenes. After his return, Jam allegedly became increasingly active in ways that began attracting serious attention. According to the narrative that has circulated through federal discovery discussions and public commentary, this growing activity was significant enough that people close to Jam reportedly grew concerned. And this is where the bathroom story enters the picture. According to accounts circulating around the trial, Lil Durk allegedly pulled Jam aside during a music video shoot and took him into the bathroom for a private conversation. In that conversation, Durk allegedly told Jam to chill, to slow down on the killings because the level of activity was drawing too much heat that could land on the entire organization. This alleged conversation has been discussed by court sources, commentators, and media outlets covering the build-up to the trial. It has not been independently verified as a transcript, and what exactly was said remains subject to how the evidence is presented and tested in court. But the significance of the alleged conversation, if true, is enormous. It would suggest that people in Durk's immediate circle were not only aware of what Jam was allegedly doing, but were worried enough about it to say something directly to him. Then came the federal gun arrest. Jam was picked up in May of 2230 on a federal firearms charge. For someone who had just come home from a 12-year sentence, a new federal case is not a small matter. Federal gun charges carry serious consequences on their own, and when they arrive with the weight of a full federal investigation behind them, the pressure on the person in that situation is immense. But what reportedly made this moment even more significant was what investigators told him when they had him in custody. According to the accounts surrounding this period, federal authorities confronted Jam with information about his alleged involvement in multiple homicides. They were not just talking to him about the gun charge, they were making clear that they already knew things about him, and they wanted him to cooperate and tell them what he knew about the people around him. Jam initially refused. That refusal matters because it says something about where his head was at that point. Even facing a new federal case, even having investigators come at him with information about alleged murders, he still held his position. That is not a small thing. That is someone who, at least in that moment, was still honoring the code of the environment he had returned to. He had spent 12 years without breaking. The expectation from the people around him, and arguably his own expectation of himself, was that he would hold it down again. And in that interrogation room, at least initially, he did. But then something changed. Jam's baby mother reached out to Lil Durk seeking financial support to help Jam secure a strong defense lawyer. She was reportedly begging for help, making clear that without a top-tier attorney, Jam was looking at a massive sentence. Durk allegedly brushed off her calls and refused to pay. Now think about what that moment meant to a man sitting in a federal case. He had done 12 years without breaking. He had come home and allegedly gone back to work for the same circle. He was now facing federal consequences again, and the man who handed him $50,000 cash on the day he came home could not be reached when his freedom was on the line. That is the moment where the math on loyalty changes. In that world, the unspoken agreement has always been simple. You hold it down, you do not talk, you protect the people above you, and when you need help, they show up. Jam held up his end of that agreement for over a decade. The other side did not hold. And when a man who has already sacrificed that much realizes the people he sacrificed for are not going to be there when it counts, the decision to cooperate stops being a betrayal and starts looking like the only rational move left. Federal investigators already had him. They already knew about the alleged murders. They were already building a case. The only thing left for Jam to decide was whether he was going to go down alone or whether he was going to make a different choice. Federal prosecutors ultimately confirmed Jam as the primary cooperating witness set to testify against Lil Durk in his murder-for-hire trial. Jam allegedly wore a hidden recording device and provided information to investigators over an extended period, reportedly spanning approximately 2 years. 2 years. That is a long time to be in that position. Think about what that actually means in practice. You are going about your daily life, interacting with people you have known for years, people who trust you, people who may have come to your welcome home celebration, and the entire time you are feeding everything back to federal agents. Every conversation, every plan, every moment that investigators flagged as significant. Jam was not just giving the government names on a piece of paper. He was allegedly living inside the investigation, collecting evidence from the inside while the people around him had no idea. That internal audio he was gathering, those recordings of conversations inside OTF, became a core part of what ultimately led to Lil Durk's arrest in October 2024. The wire Jam was allegedly wearing, is believed to be one of the most significant pieces of evidence the prosecution has in its hands. That is an extraordinary level of commitment to a decision that the world he came from would call the ultimate betrayal. But from where Jam was standing, it may have looked very different. Durk did not help him get a lawyer. The feds already knew about the murders, and his baby mother was gone. Every bridge back to loyalty had been burned, and not entirely by him. Someone who has been inside an alleged criminal organization, who has had direct conversations with the people being investigated, gives prosecutors a window into events and relationships that phone records and financial transactions alone cannot fully explain. That is exactly the kind of witness the government needed to build its case against one of the biggest names in rap. And then there is the most disturbing element in this entire story. Federal prosecutors allege that Lil Durk had Jam's baby mother killed as an act of intimidation, a direct attempt to scare Jam into silence and stop him from cooperating with the government. The idea being that once Durk found out Jam was working with the feds, the decision was made to go after the person closest to him, as a brutal warning to stay quiet. But if the intention was to make Jam back down, it had the opposite effect. Instead of scaring him into silence, learning that the mother of his child had been killed over his legal situation completely erased whatever street loyalty was left in him. It did not intimidate him. It infuriated him. Any lingering hesitation, any remaining sense of obligation to the people he had once called family, died with her. From that point forward, Jam was fully committed to being the prosecution's star witness. He was not cooperating reluctantly. He was cooperating with purpose. The man who once refused to talk in an interrogation room was now the most important witness the government had against one of the biggest names in Chicago rap, and there was nothing left to pull him back. Now let's return to the prison attack itself, because that is what has brought this story back to everyone's attention. Reports emerged in early 2025 claiming that Jam had been attacked while incarcerated and was stabbed twice while in protective custody. Protective custody is a designation meant to separate an individual from potential threats within the general prison population. It is typically granted to people who face credible risk from others inside the facility, whether because of the nature of their case, their cooperation status, or other factors. The fact that the attack allegedly occurred even under that designation raises serious questions about the level of danger surrounding him. Being in protective custody is not the same as being completely insulated from violence. It limits exposure, but does not eliminate risk. And for someone whose cooperation against one of the most prominent figures in Chicago rap has been widely discussed publicly, the target on his back was never going to disappear just because of a housing assignment. The attack left him in critical condition, and the moment that news spread, there was only one conversation anyone was having. Everyone connected the stabbing directly to what Jam allegedly did to Durk. That connection may be exactly right. It may also be that the full picture has not yet come out. But what cannot be disputed is that a man who is set to testify in one of the most high-profile federal trials in recent rap history was stabbed in prison before he ever got the chance to take the stand. Whatever the circumstances behind that attack, its timing alone made it one of the most talked about developments in the entire Durk case. The story of how Jam got here cannot be understood without understanding the broader context of what Lil Durk is accused of. Federal prosecutors allege that Durk masterminded a murder-for-hire conspiracy rooted in retaliation for the death of King Von, his close friend and OTF label mate, who was killed in November 2020 following a confrontation with Quando Rondo outside an Atlanta lounge. Prosecutors allege that Durk orchestrated a plan to kill Quando Rondo, and that an alleged hit team traveled from Chicago to Los Angeles in August 2022 to carry out the hit. The intended target escaped, but Quando Rondo's cousin, Savier Robinson, known as Lou Pab, was fatally shot in the process. Durk was arrested in October 2024 in Florida by federal marshals. He has pleaded not guilty. His trial, which involves multiple co-defendants, began jury selection on August 20th, 2026, in Los Angeles. Prosecutors have sought to introduce music videos, lyrics, text messages, phone records, financial transactions, and witness testimony as evidence. The judge has already ruled on which of Durk's own songs and videos can be presented to the jury, a battle that played out publicly in the weeks before trial. Durk's defense is fighting aggressively on every front, and the cooperation of witnesses like Jam and fellow OTF associate Kayvon Grant will likely be one of the central issues the defense targets. Among the most notable pieces of the prosecution's evidentiary puzzle is what Jam can allegedly say about the conversations, decisions, and relationships at the center of the case. Now take a step back and look at the full arc of this story from beginning to end. A man goes to prison in 2010 for attempted murder. He serves 12 years. He keeps his mouth shut the entire time. He comes home in February 2022 to a welcome that includes $50,000 in cash and new cars, the kind of reception that sends a clear message about how valued he is. He allegedly goes back to work for OTF and becomes so active that people inside the circle are worried. Durk allegedly pulls him into a bathroom during a music video shoot and tells him to slow down because the heat he is bringing could land on the entire organization. He keeps going. He gets arrested on a federal gun charge in May 2023. Investigators sit across from him and tell him they already know about the murders and want him to open up. He refuses. He stays loyal even in that room. Then his baby mother reaches out to Durk for legal help. Durk does not come through. Jam is sitting in a federal case with no lawyer and no support from the people he has protected for years. He makes a different decision. He starts cooperating. He allegedly wears a wire for approximately 2 years, feeding the government everything they need to build a case against one of the most famous rappers in the world. Then federal prosecutors allege that Durk had his baby mother killed to scare him into silence. Instead of backing down, Jam cooperated even harder. And then, while sitting in prison in protective custody waiting to testify in a trial that could send Lil Durk to prison for life, he is stabbed twice and ends up in critical condition. Every single step of that timeline leads directly to the next one. None of it is random. And together it forms one of the most complete stories of loyalty lost, betrayal felt, and consequences paid that has come out of the rap world in recent memory. The word snitching is being used constantly in the conversation around Jam. And it is worth separating what that word means on the street from what it means in a legal context. In street culture, snitching refers to providing information to law enforcement that results in consequences for people in your circle. The stigma attached to it is serious and can follow someone indefinitely regardless of the circumstances that led to it. Once that label attaches, it stays. It does not matter what was done to you, what was taken from you, or what pressures you were under. The street verdict is simple and permanent. In the federal legal system, the formal term is cooperation, and it is a mechanism that prosecutors rely on regularly in complex criminal cases involving organized groups. Cooperating witnesses receive benefits in exchange for their testimony, which can include sentencing reductions, drop charges, or other considerations. The federal system is built in part on the expectation that people with inside knowledge will eventually make the calculation that cooperating serves their interests better than protecting people who have already stopped protecting them. None of that changes how the street views it, but it does explain why Jam's cooperation is such a valuable tool for the prosecution and such a major credibility issue for the defense. Durk's attorneys will have every opportunity to challenge Jam's account at trial. They will question his motives, highlight his criminal history, and argue to the jury that a man with so much to gain from cooperation cannot be taken at face value. They will argue he is telling the government whatever they want to hear in exchange for a deal. The prosecution will counter that his account is supported by recordings, financial records, and other evidence that does not depend solely on his word. That battle over Jam's credibility is going to be one of the defining moments of the entire trial. On one side of the public debate, critics portray Jam as someone who betrayed the code, a man who came home to a generous welcome, allegedly benefited from the OTF network, and then turned around and fed years of information to federal agents. From that perspective, the prison attack is the street's verdict on what he did. On the other side, a different argument exists. One that says Jam was a man who spent 12 years in prison, came home to expectations he was expected to fulfill without question, allegedly got drawn deeper into danger on behalf of other people, and then found out the hard way that loyalty only runs in one direction when legal fees are due. He held up his end. He kept quiet for over a decade. He came home and went back to work. And when the moment came where he needed the people he had protected to step up for him, they did not. The legal abandonment, combined with the alleged murder of his baby mother, created a situation where there was nothing left to protect by staying silent. Neither interpretation of Jam's decision can be called the final truth. Both exist inside this story, and both reflect something real about how the world these men operate in actually functions. The moral complexity here is part of why this case has gripped people far beyond the usual rap audience. The questions that remain unanswered are significant. Who carried out the reported attack on Jam in prison has not been officially confirmed. Exactly what information he provided to investigators beyond what has appeared in public filings is not fully known. What specific benefits he is receiving in exchange for his cooperation has not been comprehensively disclosed. And what his testimony will actually look like when he takes the witness stand in the Lil Durk trial is still ahead of us. These unknowns are not minor details. They are the central questions that the court process is designed to resolve. Social media moves fast, and clips, podcasts, and commentary channels can compress complicated legal situations into simple narratives of betrayal and revenge within hours. But court proceedings move on their own timeline, and the most important answers are the ones that come out under oath, tested by cross-examination in front of a jury that has to weigh all of it. At the end of the day, OTF Jam's story is about what happens when someone gets caught between worlds. He came home from prison into a world that welcomed him back with money and loyalty. He allegedly went back to doing what he knew, and then the federal government came and gave him a choice. What makes his story so compelling and so complicated is that the road to his alleged cooperation is not a simple one. It involves 12 years behind bars, a high-profile welcome home, alleged violent activity, a gun charge, a lawyer that never came, a baby mother taken from him, and finally a decision that has reportedly left him in a hospital bed fighting for his life. The people who see him as a traitor will point to the code he broke. The people who see him differently will point to everything that was taken from him before he made that choice. One thing is undeniable. Every door that could have kept Jam loyal was closed before he walked through the one that led to the government. Whether he is viewed as a betrayer or as someone who was abandoned first depends entirely on which part of the story you choose to focus on. The court will focus on all of it, and when Casey Hester eventually takes that witness stand in the Lil Durk trial, the answers that come out in that room will matter far more than anything spreading online right now. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Jam made the right call, or did loyalty demand something different? Let us know, and make sure you tap in for more breakdowns like this. 1.